everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. You know the drill by now, only you kind of don't, because we're just throwing out episodes like there's no tomorrow. We're making it rain with high-pitched podcasts, and that is exactly what we plan on doing for the foreseeable future. So if you're new around here, if you're an Eagles fan that's only just discovering an octave a little bit higher than normal for your traditional Eagles podcast, then now is the time to hit subscribe. We are on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and a bunch of others that I usually forget. I still haven't sorted out Google Play yet, but baby steps, you know, we're gonna, one step at a time. I'm sure we'll be there soon. We're off the back of an NFL draft weekend like no other. I genuinely cannot remember something that, well, actually I can. Game of Thrones last night. I'm not going to go into Game of Thrones, but this has been the most emotional weekend. I am drained at this point. I promised myself that I wasn't going to put out a podcast today, that I kind of have today off to some extent, have a bit of a rest, just do some light work, maybe an article or two, and then have Tuesday to Friday and Saturday on Eagles film rooms. But it's me, I've got obsessive work tendencies, I probably need therapy for them at this point, and we're here again. So as if this draft weekend couldn't have been rollercoasterish enough, as if Game of Thrones didn't break me down to my core, we've now got an hour-long podcast to get through, where we're not quite back to the regular format. We're not taking thank you next questions just yet. That will return on Friday. But it is a good time to recap. And before we get started and dive into whatever the Eagles did and didn't do over the course of the weekend, I just wanted to say a huge thank you. This was the first NFL draft I've been able to cover full-time without balancing another job. And for those of you who've worked part-time jobs, you'll know that most of them require you to be in on weekends, which was always perfect, having 5 years of being stuck in a store while the NFL draft is going on. I said on a podcast last week, I remember last year, when the Eagles took Dallas Goedert, I was on a train home from work. It was absolutely horrendous. I hated it. I was genuinely so angry in this train because there was no Wi-Fi. I was using mobile data. It wasn't pretty. And this year, I promised myself that we'd go harder than before. So I think there were 8 videos and 14 articles from Friday to Sunday from myself, on top of the work our writers did as well. So if you've watched or read any of that, and obviously the 3 podcasts as well, thank you, because obviously without you guys watching and reading or listening, there isn't much point in me doing this, but it genuinely means a lot to have this level of community growing. So LJ is a little bit tired, but also very, very thankful on a Monday afternoon where we can kind of finally take a deep breath, look back at this Eagles draft with a sense of retrospective optimism, I would say. And that is a big phrase for someone that is completely dead right now. But there is no reason, I think, to be concerned with this. Now, the Eagles only had 5 selections in the end. They had opportunity for more. They started out with 2 4th-round picks and 2 second-round picks. Ended up obviously trading one of those 4th-rounders, trading a 6th-rounder, ended up picking in the 7th, and then traded that away as well. So you ended up with a very weak in terms of quantity draft class. I think the Eagles were actually tied with the New York Jets for the least total draft picks this year. However, in terms of quality, which is always the most important thing, I say quality over quantity like I haven't just spammed out 30 pieces of content this weekend, but you know what I mean. The Eagles were very concise, very smart. The old saying of KISS, keep it simple, stupid, they nailed that down to a T. But there are still questions here. Okay, there are still people wondering, what about linebacker? What about safety? Why didn't they go with a slot receiver? There are some certain questions which are bound to come up. More than likely, what Clayton Thorson is doing in an Eagles jersey, that one's going to come up, I'm sure, on plenty of occasions between now and week 1 of the regular season. But there is a lot to look back on. And I would, if I was to sum up this whole draft in one awful anecdote, which is what this podcast is rapidly becoming renowned for, it would be that I am an awful, awful cook. Okay, like I'm the worst. There are so many stories I could give you, I've given you before, about my culinary prowess or lack thereof, and I hope that I'm not alone in saying this. I know some of you guys are probably Gordon Ramsay in disguise, but for me, it's always a bit of a hassle, and a hustle, if we're brutally honest. And to me, it feels like back in school, I would say high school, I think that's the equivalent for you guys, when I was around 14 years old, we had food class, okay? Or cooking, whatever you want to call it. And I came in late to one lesson. So Mr. Sherwood, I remember him, what a legend. Mr. Sherwood's food class, where we had to make, all it was, I promise you, was spaghetti bolognese. I was a little bit late. So I get in late, I put my bag on the table with all my ingredients in. Everyone else has already got the oven on, they're heating up the spaghetti and whatever. And I'm thinking, oh my god, I'm so far behind. He's giving a demo on how to cut an onion properly, which I now regret not attending because that would have transformed my life. So I get all the ingredients, I bung them into this saucepan, I put it onto the hob, I whack it up, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, if I put my hob at the max, I think it was 260. I could be wrong, I don't know if that matters in American metrics or not, but if I turn that all the way up and I leave it there, I'll catch up with everyone else really quickly. I can catch the end of the onion demo. And a teaching assistant came up to me and said, you don't want to do that. You know, that's being too much. You just turn it down, leave it there. You'll be fine. It's not that deep. Basically just saying, look, Liam, it's spaghetti bolognese. It's not that hard. You'll be absolutely fine. I was still a bit paranoid. There were a lot of things I had to catch up on. What sauce was I going to put in the bolognese? What was actually going to, was it going to put onions in there? Could I put peppers in there? I didn't know. So I bunged it all into a pot. And I thought I knew better. Alright, so it's in the bowl. We turn it on. We go to 260. I go to start looking at the demonstration. And I swear to you, this happened. Alright. But the teacher giving the demonstration said, what's that smell? It's not the onion. Which I agreed with. It was a little bit more potent, a little bit more smoggy. I turn around and there is smoke, like black smoke, bellowing from my saucepan. Now, I don't know what I put in there. I was hurrying. There was all sorts of ingredients. So something, maybe I just didn't put water in it looking back. Maybe that was it. I don't think I put water in the pot. So I just kind of put it all in, turned it on. Anyway, teaching assistant runs out, pours the pot into a sink, which is filled with water, which wasn't a good idea because that only added oxygen, and then it all just sort of, a big flame came up from the sink, and then it all went. TA is screaming at me, calling me an idiot. I got sent outside the classroom and given a detention. That was what this draft was. The fans being me, Howie Roseman being the teaching assistant. As fans, and I think analysts and media as well, we're all in that same boat where we presume we know what's in the team's best interests, or what we think to be in the team's best interests. It's easy for myself to sit on draft night with a can of energy drink and say, why is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson slipping? Why haven't the Eagles taken a safety? Why are they letting Blake Cashman slip? Why are they trading up if it's not for a defensive tackle? Why are they taking a quarterback in the 5th round? Then you get to the end of the draft and you look at the picks that have made and you understand the reasoning and you're like, do you know what? I probably should have listened with that, because if that was me, that would have been a train wreck. And I feel that's probably the direction this draft has gone. Because if you look at it from top to bottom, you now have the future heir to the throne to Jason Peters. You've now got a running back who can slot in at RB2, potentially become the starter after Jordan Howard. You've got a receiver who, while may not fill an immediate need under Nelson Aguilar, is built in the same vein as Alshon Jeffrey and gives the Eagles one of the most ridiculously explosive red zone offenses in the NFL. You've then got a defensive end that will slide into a very young and emerging rotation that in a couple of years' time may well look like Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat, Sharif Miller, Joe Ostman. Potentially. Now, obviously that's subject to change. There could be extensions. Graham could be around a little bit longer. He could play another deal, what have you. But within a few years, there's no reason that can't be your defensive end rotation. And then obviously you've got Clayton Thorson, who is on the quarterback conveyor belt. Let's just hope it's a bit of a slow one. But you understand the logic and why those picks were made. And why that teaching assistant told me to not worry about the temperature, just go and watch a demonstration, because otherwise it might catch fire. And if the Eagles had drafted my mock draft, for instance, they may have caught fire, who knows? It may have just been the worst decision to take Chauncey Gardner-Johnson because of character issues. Maybe they didn't trade up for a defensive tackle because of that Jernigan. I mean, that is going severely overlooked. That Timmy Jernigan signing. The Hassan Ridgeway signing. I mean, that in itself is one of the best pieces of business I think this team has done throughout this draft process. If you look back now at this defensive tackle position, where you've got Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, now Timmy Jernigan, and now a guy that at 24 years old has 6 starts, 34 games, and 4.5 sacks to his name in his career. At 24, a former 4th round pick. You don't need to go out and make full advantage of that DT class. There's no need. Just because it was historic in terms of depth, as Roseman once put, you've got everything you need there. And I think this is being criminally overlooked. That Roseman's drafting mentality has been absolutely perfect. It's that blend of finding the right type of player. They're not reaching for talent. And this is the thing. There's a difference. Because I play Football Manager, if anyone has played the game, I would call it Soccer Manager, but that's just not factually correct. So, Football Manager, you manage soccer teams, you scout players, you bring them in, blah, 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 blah. The players themselves have 2 ratings, 2 predominant scouting ratings. You've got potential out of 5 and current ability out of 5. Now, that's in correlation to what players you've got at the positions currently. But I feel as though a lot of teams will look at potential. You want potential to be at a 5. You want to bring in those immediate, maybe a 2 or 3 star current ability, but you want a 5 potential, a future franchise guy. But the Eagles are in a position where they want a blend of maybe a 3 and a 4, or a 4 and a 4. You don't need to be reaching low current ability, high potential, because the team are winning now. I mentioned last podcast, they're within what is now the year 4 of a Super Bowl window. 2016, a good step forward. 2017, they won. 2018, back to the playoffs in the most adverse circumstances possible. They're in year 4. They don't need to be looking at an Ed Oliver. They don't need to be drafting someone with this tremendous upside that's got some work there. Or they need that current ability in. And I think they've got that across all of their picks. So the way they've broached this to keep that win now mentality alive, I'm all in on. I may not agree with some of the picks. I'm not the biggest Miles Sanders fan you will find, but I understand the motive. I understand the reasoning. And I went through this in my draft grades. Apologies if you've watched or read any of the content from the last weekend. You may hear some of it being repeated today. But I think that Roseman's ability to keep this team on track, to not reach for potential and just go with current talent and fit into a team, could be the difference. If you've only got 5 picks, that's fine. But if you hit on all 5, you've probably had a better draft than 30 other teams in this league. The other one being the Patriots, because the Patriots. It was a very bizarre draft. And there were so many apples in the orchard for the Eagles to look at and think, ooh, could we? Could we draft that? So put it this way, when you're on the clock and you move up to 22 and you have got some premier defensive tackles, you've got every safety on the board, you've got to have every running back on the board, and you trade up for an offensive lineman, and you stick to your guns, and you draft a top 10 talent that has slid due to the domino effect of elsewhere, you don't look at the players already within your catching radius. You look at the players maybe just outside who've fallen a lot further than they should have. The same with JJ Arcega-Whiteside. The only player that wasn't applicable for, I don't think Miles Sanders would have gone in the second round, or at least where he did. I think he would have gone realistically where Darrell Henderson went, which is still heartbreaking. Kicking the teeth he went to the Rams, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. Now, the other aspect of this draft, and something that I haven't touched on yet, I'm saving for an article tomorrow, so this will come out on Tuesday, is I think this is a massive show of trust in the Eagles coaching staff. Because what a lot of teams, I think, either make the mistake of doing, or a lot of fans do especially, is assuming that just because a player has high potential, that potential is going to be harnessed. Just look at, let's say, Johnny Manziel, a Ryan Leaf. I know those are 2 very extremes at the quarterback position, but there are plenty of first-round selections especially that just don't end up panning out as expected, or they're out of the league within 3 to 5 years, or they don't get that fifth-year option executed. Some of them just sort of fade away. Obviously, we won't mention Danny Watkins in that sentence, but I feel like Marcus Smith is another one for the Eagles more recently. And if it wasn't for a change of culture moving him inside, Nelson Aguilar was very almost teetering on that edge until that breakout with Carson Wentz. So teams either do one of two things. They overstate their coaching staff's impact, or they understate it. And I think the Eagles would have done a very good job of is putting all of their chips on one of the more, I would say, well-rounded coaching staffs in this league. Now, no prospect comes out 100% guaranteed to pan out. If your name is not Saquon Barkley, then maybe you're an exception. But it feels to me that every pick here has been drafted with development under the coaching staff specifically in mind. And I know this sounds common sense. Hear me out though. Andre Dillard, best pass protecting back, or best pass protecting tackle I should say, although a running back would be interesting in this class. We don't need to go through the metrics by now. We know he only allowed 1 sack on close to 700 pass blocking snaps last year. We know he played more pass blocking snaps than any other tackle at the FBS level, or even in the NFL last season, including the postseason. So that says a lot. We know that in terms of fundamentals, he's got a lot going for him. We know he's very athletic. We know he's a slightly older tackle. But he lacks a little bit in run blocking, and he can sometimes get power rush to the quarterback. Like, fall into his lap. The Eagles just so happen to have the best offensive line coach, in my opinion, in all of football, in Jeff Stoutland, who, for context, if we're to look at the resume of Jeff Stoutland since he's come onto this Eagles roster, he came in before Jason Kelce went to 2 Pro Bowl seasons. He came in the year the Eagles drafted Lane Johnson. And Lane Johnson, as we know, has now developed into who many regard the best tackle in football, period. They then turned Halapoulivaati Vaitai into a very serviceable starter. A man that, when tasked with stopping Everson Griffin in the NFC Championship game, rose to the occasion and didn't allow a single sack. I believe he didn't allow a single quarterback hit. There was a film room on the YouTube channel that demonstrates that. They also not only turned Isaac Seumalo, someone that was almost regarded as a bust at certain point, again, another example. They moved him to center. He was throwing balls behind him as if he was Patrick Mahomes. And then got slid back inside at left guard, handled his business, and was one of the most efficient Eagles offensive linemen of all of last year combined. You've then got Brandon Brooks, who already came in at an elite level, sustain that. You now get Andre Dillard, another potential franchise left tackle. That is a vote of confidence on Stoutland. Do you think if you've got, let's say, a graduate assistant coach as an offensive line coach, or someone in his first year in the job, that you make that pick, that you mortgage the future of the left tackle position on a coach who has no proven record or no proven resume? You don't do that. You just don't. You don't see it. Teams who build through the trenches, look at the Texans. The Texans are a fantastic example. Because in my opinion, Anthony Weaver is one of the league's best defensive line coaches. And you want a testament to that? Look at Jadeveon Clowney, look at JJ Watt, look at DJ Reader. They've all flourished under his guidance. If you want to go one further than that and see another example of it, just look at what the LA Chargers are doing right now with Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. It's just fantastic. It all comes down to coaching. And I know you can easily look at this Eagles roster and say it's littered with stars, but so many of them have to have that potential realised. When Jason Peters was traded for all those years ago, he didn't come in playing at the elite level that he is now. There was still somewhat of a development process to go through. And I think the same can be said for Vaitai. The same can be said for Seumalo. That entire draft class were really, really pushed to the next level by Jeff Stoutland. And you can only applaud those efforts. Let's move to the running back position. You've got a running back who I said in a video recently, and I'll stand by this, I wasn't a big fan of. I ranked him, I think, 8th out of my 10 running backs that would fit the Eagles. I think Darrell Henderson would have been my perfect pick at the position, but the only reason why he was so far down that list was that he's got the ball security of me, which isn't strong. I mean, I know it's misleading. You look at me, you think, strapping young lad, built like an absolute machine. he fumbles the ball a lot. I'm sorry to let you know. My vertical doesn't speak for itself. But you've got Miles Sanders fumbling a lot. Pass protection is a massive concern. You've also got a guy that can be used in passing lanes, someone who can line up in the slot at Penn State. You then view an Eagles running game, and more specifically Juice Staley, the running back coach, who has helped Wendell Smallwood go from year one. I honestly can't describe what Wendell Smallwood ran like in year one. He was sort of like, I don't want to say, that's a bad comparison, I can't use that. Ben would kill me for saying, alright, we're going to say it as a joke. If you see the video of Ben Solak's 40-yard dash time, Wendell Smallwood in his rookie season, there was just no sense of general. I'm really sorry, Ben. I love you, but it's great. I can't get over that. To do with Wendell Smallwood, there was just so much going on. He tried to do so much with the ball in his hands. He had happy feet. You know when Roadrunner go to set up in a cartoon, right? Where you've got a cartoon character that revs up like before they're being chased, and they'll sprint on the spot and the smoke builds up and then they'll dash away. That's Wendell Smallwood, and he didn't dash away. The next year, though, he comes back to training camp running aggressive. He's popping people in training camp. There is clashes helmet to helmet. He's lowering his pads, not trying to avoid contact. Then he gets thwarted by injuries, and everyone's like, oh, okay, right, here we go again. And then 2018, which is the year that a lot of people are overlooking and saying that, oh, well, obviously Josh Adams emerged, became the bell cow. Wendell Smallwood, in pass protection, out of nowhere, looked very, very good. Now, there were still some errors. He wasn't perfect. And God forbid we talk about that time he was backed up in his own end zone, running round with more hesitation than me going to talk to a girl on a night out. But the advances in pass protection and the fact he set a new career high for receiving yards speak volumes about development. And that's the key. So Juice Staley was one drafted in mind. Now let's talk about wide receiver JJ Arcega-Whiteside. Before we talk about the coaching staff, though, we need to have a poll, and I need you to tweet me this, okay, about what we nickname JJ Arcega-Whiteside. So if you listen to this, I need you to tweet me at LiamJenkins21 with your selection. And then we'll put all the best ones into a poll. So if it's not said on this show, this is your chance to get it in. We'll have an official Arcega-Whiteside naming poll. Now, this is, of course, official, endorsed by the team, because Captain Cravon exists. And if I search Captain Cravon on Twitter, it's become a thing. We are the next generation of player nickname. So I need you, after seeing Captain Cravon in a ship with a pirate hat on, to believe in me and believe in yourself that you can come up with the next big nickname for JJ Arcega-Whiteside. We also had hashtag Goddess, but there is a copyright claimant with Michael Kist who also had it, but without the E. So mine was more of a direct British pun because, you know, that's how we do. He just put God without the E. So who's really won that argument? I would say me, but it's up for debate. Names for JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I'm sold on Sega with a C, which does look like Kegger. So there is that to be concerned with. However, I feel there is a massive room for opportunity here because this is not just a player. This is a man that's double-barreled JJ. His initials are JJAW, which is only one letter away from Jawn. So I know you've got Jawn doesn't work. J-Jawn maybe. Jaws you can't. Jaws 2.0 maybe. There's a few. Okay, there is a few. Now, I initially put a poll up and I said Jaws with a Z, J-Jawn, JJ Arcega-Brightside, which had 13% of votes. I am fuming at that. I'm absolutely furious. How can we not have Mr. Brightside on this team? What a pun. Okay, that is next level punnery, I'll have you know. And then I even went one further to tweet lyrics underneath of coming out of my... I won't sing it. Coming out of my cage and I've been doing just fine. Got to score a touchdown because I won it all. Right? And then you can even go one further. Incorporate Michael Kist. It started out with a kist. Huh? So, who do you really want nicknaming players? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. J-Jaw is a front runner. I like Sega. But what do you like? So far we've got Jaws, J-Jawn, Arcega-Brightside, Mr. Brightside, Mr. Whiteside, any combination of that, and J-Jaw. So he's lost a second. He's just one jaw. Lost the second bit. But let me know what you want to name JJ Arcega-Whiteside. And then we will finalise all of the opinions, all of the names, and put them into a big video. So Baby Olshan I know is one, but you can't have that all his career. That's kind of disrespectful, isn't it? So tweet me at Liam Jenkins 21. That's the @ sign, not at Liam. Don't do that. But @ sign Liam Jenkins 21, and let me know the player and the nickname you wish to assign. We'll do one each week. We'll start with the easy one. Then we'll move to Sharif Miller, and then a couple other players as well. But should we go through the whole roster? This could get messy. Let's calm down. I'm sleep deprived. Let's just behave a bit now. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, tweet me at Liam Jenkins 21. Let me know the nickname that our Hive, the outside insider Hive, shall name him as from this day forth, or next day forth, whenever it gets submitted. But back onto the original point. There was obviously a lot of concern last year with Mike Gray becoming offensive coordinator, and the bizarre, I wouldn't say bizarre, it was the reaction itself was bizarre, but the implementation of Golden Tate, which I said from day one, from day one, by long time listeners, I mean for more than 6 months, the day that trade happened, I was like, it won't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with receivers. Look at any mid-season receiver trade not named Amari Cooper, even Randy Moss, even that bizarre Cowboys one not named Amari Cooper a few years ago. It just doesn't work at the deadline because there is so much to pick up, so much terminology to get used to, then actually get onto the field, then build a rapport with your quarterback who is naturally going to be less comfortable throwing to you. It takes time. So, because there was such a hasty amount of criticism on the Eagles for not using Golden Tate, that Mike Groh was like, well, hey, it's going to be challenging, and everyone rips into shreds for it, and I really don't believe it was his fault. I think that is the nature of the trade. Now we're going to see what Groh can do with a full off-season and Sega at his disposal. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, at 6'2", 226 pounds, averaged over 16.8 yards per reception, 14 tutties. The guys are... The worst is I'm not even reading these out. This is just from a weekend of constantly repeating these numbers. The guy's an absolute machine. He is a true basketball player in a way. He rebounds, he goes up, he boxes out defenders. And again, in the long term here, this helps the Eagles massively. It may not be a direct replacement for Nelson Aguilar, but you've got the chance to groom a receiver with a new receivers coach who's just joined this offseason to get the most out of a player who at that level of athlete, will be it doesn't matter if you can't take the top off with speed. You don't need dash from the Incredibles to score a touchdown. And if you do, you've got Deshaun Jackson. This is someone that is going to really open up red zone packages and really develop. The only areas of his game that are really criticised are that his yards after... Excuse me, this dinner's coming back on me. The yards after... I've never had a burping fit, or a hiccup as I should say on a podcast. This could be the first day. I'm battling it as hard as I can. Please bear with me. But we've never seen someone like JJ Arcega-Whiteside in this Eagles offense before, I don't think. I think Alshon Jeffrey is special. We're now going to see a younger version of that. What we've seen from Alshon Jeffrey, a lot of you are going to be hammering at keyboards with criticism right now. Give it time. Alshon Jeffrey in 2017 played from week 2 through the rest of the year with essentially half a shoulder. So we still haven't seen a receiver like Arcega-Whiteside because we've only really seen an injured / half injured / half underutilized / complaining Alshon Jeffrey. We haven't seen Alshon Jeffrey at his peak. He's getting a bit older. Are we going to see him at his peak next season? I hope so. And then I can take that comment back. But I feel like Arcega-Whiteside is the Alshon Jeffrey of the future. His yards after the catch get a bit criticised. I don't know why, but that's going to be an area of improvement and getting more elusive sort of once the ball is in his hands. But overall, the Eagles are going to get themselves a true 50-50 specialist. On the field with Goddard, Ertz and Jeffrey, you've got the most fluster-causing offensive personnel group imaginable. It is insane. Absolutely insane. So I'm all for it. Then you look at Sharif Miller, who is going to be working under Chris Long, defensive line coach. Again, one of the best at what he does in the NFL. And you look at the development of players who've come through in the last couple of years. Vinny Curry went on to get himself a nice contract before coming back. I think Derek Barnett has kind of been a testament to that before getting injured. There have been some defensive ends that have come and gone. We haven't seen enough of Josh Sweat to really gauge. The same with Joe Ostman, who should be a bigger factor next year. But again, Sharif Miller has that burst. He's got the explosiveness off the line. It's just that if he can't win with power on that explosive edge, there's nothing else really there. There's no counters. There's no array of pass rushing moves. There's nothing in it like hidden in his back pocket to pull out on a third down, and he can burn out quite quickly. That's where Chris Wilson comes in. That's where the veteran comes in. And then you've got Clayton Thorson. And I know the Eagles quarterback position has changed in terms of coaching a lot. And that they've lost DeFilippo. That Grover's been kind of a bit more moved over to that sort of monitoring now. But you've got Press Taylor involved. This is big. Like, if you look at the Eagles conveyor belt, when Nate Sudfeld was first brought over from Washington, and they poached him from the practice squad, and I put a film room out, and seeing that the weird way he threw the ball at college, and that he would often just kind of sling it and hope for the best, that he was a little bit more erratic, that he had this thing where the throwing motion, as he turned his body, the shoulders and his feet, the feet will be pointing wherever, like, again, just outwards, and his shoulders would point down, and this caused for some very erratic throws. Like, the ball would either be underthrown or overthrown a solid 50% of the time. Pre-season last year, I think he looked great. There was a clear jump. And then we see it in the regular season. He throws a touchdown. I know he didn't really do much on it, but there's a clear development. And the Eagles obviously feel confident in that to give him a contract or pick up that tender and keep him in Philadelphia to be the backup to Carson Wentz. So that conveyor belt now moves, and you pick up a guy that has 27 interceptions in his last 27 games, that isn't as mobile, that does have the frame, that does have the athleticism and the arm strength. He's just a bit more wild with it. But there is never a moment that is too big for Clayton Thorson. He's been to 4 bowl games, he's won 3, he's come back from a horrific ACL tear to win that third one. I think there's a lot of upside to like. There's a lot of upside to that. It's just the statistics and averaging 6 yards per pass where it's borderline Sam Bradford level. And I hate to say that because Sam Bradford's my guy. But it's just true. All 5 picks that were made were vouchers of confidence in the Eagles coaching staff. 100%. Without a shadow of a doubt. And they were drafted purely to learn under the Eagles coaching staff. 100%. Without a shadow of a doubt. And with that in mind, I don't think there's a reason to be even remotely concerned about the players drafted, the players missed, the players not drafted, even the undrafted free agents, which I promised myself I won't look at until they're confirmed by the team, because right now half of them are being confused with minicamp tryouts, half of them are on social media, half of them you just don't know. So I want to try and leave that, but even some of the guys coming in there, you can make the case that they are a big fit for this team. That they have got the potential to make the 53-man roster. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our draft special. Now this, I didn't want to wait until next Friday because I feel like a lot can happen. I feel like that the next week is going to be another roller coaster of stuff to get through. But I feel that I've now finally milked that cow dry. There is no milk left in the cow's udders. We've had an abundance of videos, an abundance of podcasts before the draft, and obviously all the content during the draft. So I'm all drafted out for the minute, but I think we needed one big podcast to recap everything and just go over it all one more time retrospectively and say, hey, this is the tea. And now we've spilled it everywhere and it's hot. I spilled tea on my foot yesterday and it was really hot. I don't know why I just said that on a podcast. You can tell I'm at the end of my tether. But thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this show. It really does mean a lot to me. We had over, I think, close to 2,000 downloads of the pre-draft ones, so including Michael Kiss and Andrew DiCecco and obviously Eric Crocker. So thank you to those guys and thank you to you for listening. Yeah, this has been a little bit of a wild one. The draft has been incredible to experience. Hopefully next year we'll be able to do some more things with it. I wanted to do a live stream, but being 1 a.m. starting time here wasn't probably the most appropriate thing given I had a family sleeping in the room next to me. So maybe next year, but it means a lot this podcast is in a position where we can do these shows a bit more regularly. We'll be shooting for 2 a week, but we'll see how we go. We'll be back on Friday. You can follow me and please tweet me your Sega Whiteside nicknames at Liam Jenkins 21. I will see you next time. We are back tomorrow, so on Tuesday, for the start of the Eagles film room breakdown on all of the rookies drafted. So we're going to go from Andre Dillard all the way down to Clayton Thorson. So stay tuned for that one. I will see you next time for another episode of The Outside Insider. Talk to you soon. I really can't say goodbye, so I'll keep talking until I just cut it off. I think that's the only way we're gonna do this. So you still listening? Don't know why. Not sure what we're waiting for here, but oh, how's the weather? Gonna cut the old cord now. Yeah. See you in a bit. Toodaloo. Au revoir. Bye bye. Ciao.